Hello, this is Digital Accessibility, the people behind the progress. I'm Joe Walensky, the creator and host of this series. And as an accessibility professional myself, I find it very interesting as to how others have found their way into this profession. So let's meet one of those people right now and hear about their journey. All right, well, here we go on another edition of our accessibility podcast where we meet practitioners in the field. And as always, the main objective of this is to just hear the stories of different people that have become accessibility practitioners, learn a little bit about their journey. Sometimes people may not be familiar with how to get involved in accessibility, but that's what we want to do here is to invite everybody into what is a very interesting community of practitioners. Today I am talking with Blake Geyen, and Blake is someone who I met originally. I was teaching at the University of Washington in Tacoma, and Blake had graduated from there with a BA in Urban Studies. And since then, Blake has gone on to do consulting in the accessibility area and has helped out on projects at Blink for accessibility. And so it was natural to be able to have Blake as part of this. So let's get started. And hello, Blake. It's good to have you here. I thought the first place we could start with is where you're located and the kind of work that you're doing now.
Mm-hmm. Hello, I'm Blake Geyen. I use a speech device to communicate. I live in University Place. I'm the Volunteer Training Development Coordinator at People First of Washington. People First is a statewide nonprofit self-advocacy organization by and for people with disabilities. We advocate, educate, and celebrate people with disabilities. I coordinate documentation for all volunteers, prepare meeting minutes, clean up and organize media files, and research videos on self-advocacy and self-determination skills.
Well, thanks for being here. And with having mobility challenges, that's been one of the areas where you've really been able to provide a lot of great input on projects that we've worked on at Blink and as an accessibility consultant. But maybe tell us a little bit more about your physical challenges and the kinds of devices that you use to overcome that.
I have cerebral palsy. I have a speech impediment and use an iPad application called ProLoco for text for communication. I use an iPhone application called Speak. I have a MacBook Pro. I use assistive touch on my Apple devices to adjust the volume, lock and unlock the screen rotation, and to lock the device. I use word prediction software on my computers to help speed up my typing. I have fine motor impairments. I also use a power wheelchair for mobility.
Well, it's the fact that you use so many devices is actually helped out in our projects where you've been able to demonstrate and identify issues with software running on different device types. So that's been very helpful. But yeah, you've also been to our conference, Convey UX, in the Seattle area when we were doing that in a physical environment. And it's great to be able to have you at those. And so I know that becoming interested in supporting accessibility is something that you want to continue on in your career path. But maybe let's go back in time and tell me a little bit about what got you interested in accessibility as a career, in addition to it being an important part of you being able to do any and all the other activities in your life.
I feel like our society has a long way to go before people with all disabilities are accepted in workplaces. About 2 years ago, I had about 8 job interviews over a few months. I asked for the interview questions ahead of time and programmed my responses for the interviews, but was not selected. I believe the main reason that I was not chosen was because I use a speech device to communicate. I have been successful gaining employment with disability advocacy organizations. I would like to work for employers who will accept me for who I am.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and it's been very useful for me as well, working with you in in the way that we conduct this interview today. It's not really a big challenge. It was just exactly what you say, just a little pre-planning where we identify questions and issues that we'll be talking about, and then set that up in a way that you're able to prepare your own questions, your own responses. So it's certainly these are things that are not major obstacles, and so hopefully we'll continue to improve as a society in that area. I know there are some things that have come out in projects that you've assisted on, where you've talked about issues with accessibility. Certainly, there's lots of different aspects of accessibility that we need to be concerned about. But what are some of the things that are most important to you for accessibility?
There are many things that are important for me for accessibility. I am a power wheelchair user and rely on accessible infrastructure to get around. I use paths, sidewalks, and curb cuts when rolling through cities in my power wheelchair. Sidewalks provide a safe way for me to get around. Curb cuts allow me to get onto the sidewalk. Street lighting is also important. It allows me to see the sidewalk well when it's dark, and helps drivers see me. Accessible technology is also important. When I type on my laptop, I use sticky keys. This feature helps me save time typing. It activates command buttons like Shift until I press the key that I want. I use word prediction software to help speed up my typing. I also really appreciate being able to adjust the tracking speed of my mouse. If the mouse is too sensitive, I have a really difficult time using it.
Yes, so thanks for sharing those issues related to your experience as a user of software, and you've brought those into a lot of the projects that we've worked on together. In fact, we co-authored an article recently, and I'll include a link to that in the show notes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Blake, for contributing to this discussion. It was great to have you on here for this podcast. As I mentioned, I'll put in the show notes the link to the article that we wrote together, and hopefully we'll work together again soon on a project. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.